So yay, you've started writing your book. Amazing, congratulations. Now you are in the full drafting phase and you're feeling stuck. Maybe you've been writing for weeks, for months, even years, but how do you move from drafting towards revision and towards that final published manuscript? That is the focus of today. Help, I'm stuck in drafting. What do I do? Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of The Written Compass. Dr. Shana Hartman here, PhD turned embodied writing coach. And I'm excited for today's episode because if you have been hanging around for a while, then you know that I talk a lot about writing to write and just letting your words flow, which is all a part of the drafting process. And I go so far in my work to say we're always writing, even when we are not literally putting black words on the white page or pen or pencil to paper. I feel like we are always in motion with ourselves and our messages and all of that yummy goodness. So I always think we're drafting a something. It might not be a book. It might be just our own personal thoughts, a letter to someone, an email we want to send, a social media post, a video we want to create, something we want to share with our audience. But I think we're always writing. We're always drafting. However, there comes a point where, and I see this with all of our clients, our beautiful clients who do, yes, eventually get to hit that publish button. They get stuck in the drafting phase. And in particular, they find themselves just continuing to write, but it's not moving the book or the ideas in the book or the flow of the book like towards a book. It's just one piece of writing after another, and it's just all these different threads and strands of ideas, and they're not taking a shape. So I want to focus on the idea of like, if you're sitting here going, help, I'm stuck in drafting. So how did you get here? Let's start there. So you said yes, woohoo, to writing your book. Celebration, high five, fist bump, chest bump, all the things. That is amazing. Let's just honor that for sure. That is worth celebrating. Finally saying yes to your book, finally stepping in, whether you're doing that on your own or you're receiving support like we do in our embodied writing programs. That's amazing because there are so many people, I am convinced, who have a book, who have multiple books, and they never say yes. They never get started. They never just start honoring that book that is inside of them for all the various reasons. So I really want to stop and celebrate you for saying yes to writing your book. Yay. And then you get started, right? So however you choose to do that, my people often are pen to paper, pencil to paper people. Some of them are straight into documents. Google Drive is what we find most useful because we can easily share our work back and forth and support each other in those documents at the same time. And it's all in the cloud. Lovely. Some people talk. So we use an amazing tool called Voxer, a walkie-talkie app. There's lots of different tools like that, but a lot of my clients talk their books out and we support them in capturing those words, transcribing, just getting their ideas going. And so the drafting can look different for everyone. And part of my mission is to support people in finding their process in getting their words down. Doesn't kind of like a sport, right? Doesn't matter how the ball goes in as long as it goes in, right? As long as we score. That's the way we used to say it in soccer. It can come off of my hip. It can come off of my shoulder. It can come off my belly button. It can come off my foot. As long as it goes in the back of the net, it counts. So whatever your process has been, again, know that that has been great. You've gotten words down. That's amazing. But eventually, we have to have some point of a moment where we go, okay, what is actually here, right? So how do you know if you're at that point? And this is always also a very individual process for my clients as well. I'll use a current client where this was really showing up is we had probably taken 2-3-ish months of just letting that writing to write come out. We were pulling what we call our word assets. So this particular client is a coach. a massage therapist, a yoga instructor, a speaker. So he had tons and tons and tons of content. And so we were pulling all of that. We were getting transcripts of our coaching sessions together, capturing and just really starting to get all the words together. So there was lots of drafting in lots of different ways coming together. And we were very loosely putting those, putting titles on some of those pieces, starting to put them in maybe what might eventually become chapters and things like that. But it was very, very loose, right? We were mainly just capturing. And we finally realized, wow, there was a lot here. And what shifted for the client is what I call that feeling of saturation. So this means you're so soaked and saturated with so many words that you don't even know what's there anymore. So a lot of times when you start writing, you've got some direction or a topic that you're focusing on, and you can write down that path, and then maybe another little subtopic or idea shows up and you write down that path. And it's a loose path. Like I was saying, this client had a loose path, but there were paths to follow, right? And then eventually there's just so many paths that it just starts to get blurry. And you've maybe been reading and writing and rereading and rewriting, and you just cannot see the forest through the trees anymore, right? You don't know what is there. So it's that feeling of fullness, of saturation, of every time you go into your individual pieces or documents, however you're doing it, if it's a full book document, it's almost sickening. It's kind of the feeling of just like, oh, I cannot look at this anymore. I don't know what's here, right? So that's a signal that you're receiving intuitively that you've got enough going that it's time to make a shift. Now, that doesn't mean that your book is complete or that you're ready to head on into publication and like have an editor. No, let me be really clear there. But it is that feeling of saturation. So what do we do? All right. The number one thing is to stop. Stop adding more words. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to stop writing. It's just we want to honor what is there. And then again, this is what's so powerful about having that outside support. When our clients get saturated at this point, then we come in and take it and we are able to start to see things that they cannot see. So one of the fun things that we do is if they've been writing in different documents and different spaces and places, maybe kind of initial chapter ideas or sections, we put it all in one document. Now that process alone will help shift you out of drafting and head you into revision, which is where we want to go next. Some bit of revision, which of course is going to send us back into drafting a little bit, because as we get feedback and as we see what we need to shift in the revision process, it's that drafting, revising. But seeing it in one document, even putting page numbers in, even bolding titles of things, like it just gives it starts to shake out that saturation and you start to realize, oh my gosh, there's actually a book here. And that reinvigorates you. So you can notice that I'm talking about some embodiment elements as I'm sharing this. How do we get unstuck from drafting? Because if you're just focused on getting to publication at this point and you're not honoring like what you're feeling and experiencing, and you're not getting supported around those feelings and experiences as a writer, you might feel some continued tension and problems along the way. And it just might take you longer, or you might get stuck and just feel like, forget it, and become those people that takes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years, I've even heard, or more, to actually finish your book, because you keep getting saturated and stuck and you don't have that outside perspective and support to coach yourself, to get yourself connected and staying committed to the whole point of the book in the first place, that big picture why. So one of the tips is to put it into a full document and just see it, put page numbers, bold titles, and you start to go, oh, right, okay, here we go. The other thing is, after stopping and then after putting it into one single document, which just starts to give you a sense of, how long is this thing? How many words do I have? It's so powerful. I remember doing this with my book recently, that's a work in progress, and just realizing, oh my gosh, there's so many pages here, right? And I'm not even formatted it yet into the print version. So that's a really cool feeling. The other is we need to get other eyes, right? You've got to get other eyes on your work, all right? So getting back to that big picture, why is going to support you in getting unstuck, getting clear on the structure. And I've got some questions to ask you. One of the ways we do that is by putting it in the one single document. And then getting someone's eyes on it is also going to be supportive. So let me dive into the structure part first. So we love to put all of our writers' content eventually when they're getting in that saturated, stuck drafting phase, we put it in a single document. And then we start to ask some really powerful questions. What do you want the reader to know, do, or understand, or feel after they're finished with your book? Why do we ask this question? This is a part of that big picture connection to your why. But now we have a direction that we're starting to give our words and that we can anchor all of our drafting to. So it allows us to then, as we are rereading it, to say, hey, is this doing that? Is this, let's say I want my reader to know how to set goals and achieve goals, just to make something up. Now I can go back and read with that lens in mind. And as I'm sharing a client story, or as I'm telling a personal story, or as I'm giving a concept or breaking down an idea, I can anchor it back to and say, is this helping the reader understand how to set a goal and how to achieve their goals? And based on my response to that, I get to then make some decisions. Does this belong anymore? Maybe it does. If it does belong, does it need to be rewritten, right? So you can see how it shifts us out of drafting into revising. Another question you can ask: how can you most clearly guide the reader on that journey? This is going to help you start to see the order of operations. We often think we have to start with point number 1, 2, 3, or start chronologically, and that's not necessarily true. So asking the question of how can you most clearly guide the reader on this journey of whatever it is you're ultimately wanting them to know, do, understand, feel when they get finished with the book will allow you to start to play with the order. Okay. And then finally, I love asking my clients, what gets you excited about the structure of this book? Do you like the idea of chapters? Do you like the idea of stories being the structure? Do you like the idea of your concepts, your how-tos? Do you like the idea of sections? And there's no right or wrong to this, especially in the nonfiction world. Yes, there are some conventions. So I always encourage people to go and look at books that they really have enjoyed, but there's no have to around this. So those are some questions that can help you get out of drafting and into revision, and particularly starting to give your book more structure. As you're getting someone's eyes on it, that is absolutely going to support you in shifting from drafting to revision, because you're going to ask for feedback. Now, here, I want you to be clear. Please don't send people your writing, and we support our clients on how to actually ask for what they need. Don't just send people writing and say, tell me what you think. Because you are not going to get actually what you need. So give people, and I even encourage our clients to give different people different things. So maybe you've got the person or the friend or the support who they're really good at organization, right? Can you please give me feedback on the order of these ideas? What flows, what feels clunky, what was hard to shift from one idea to the next? Can you point those places out for me and tell me what's working and what's not in terms of the order of my ideas right now? Be specific. Maybe there's another friend, colleague, your coach, your writing coach, who, you really want to get support around how are you doing with your details? Are you going into enough details? As the reader, do they feel like they're getting the concepts, the ideas, the stories? Are they getting it, right? Are they resonating with it? So you can ask that specific question. Can you tell me how I'm doing in my details? And I want to be clear here. People don't have to read your whole book. Okay. We often get in our writing flow, and if we get some support around a few stories, sections, chapters, ideas, we can use that feedback to make revision through the entire book. So let me be clear about that. They do not have to read the full book top to bottom. But you want to get someone else's eyes on it, and you want to give specific questions, and you can leave those as comments, or as you're asking someone, put them in writing. So that they know exactly what you want. And it may be different for different parts of the book, and that's okay too. So how do you get unstuck? How do you get out of the drafting phase and into the revision and ultimately heading towards a finished manuscript? Remembering tip number 1 is to get back to your big picture why, your overall why for your book. Get clear on the structure. One of the ways to do that is get it out of individual documents and spaces and into one full document, and then ask those questions. What do you want the reader to know, do, understand, feel by the end of reading this? How can you most clearly guide the reader on that journey? And what gets you excited about anything related to the structure or organizations? Maybe that's chapters, stories, how-tos, sections, etc. And then tip number 3 is this is the time to get someone else's eyes on it. Yes, that is scary, but ask for what you need, be specific, give specific questions so you can get specific feedback to move the needle and take yourself to even closer to that finished manuscript. So as always, I want to hear from you. What did you gain from this? What are you thinking now? What resonated? What questions do you have? As always, be sure to reach out, leave us a comment. Best place to message me directly or share is on Instagram at @ShaynaHartman_. I can't wait to talk to you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Written Compass. If you are enjoying this content, do me a favor and go and review the podcast. This allows me to share and get these messages out to the people who really need them, who we want to read their books in the future. You can also go and share your thoughts and tag me at @ShaynaHartman_ on Instagram. Again, this is just a way for us to get connected and share the writing love. And if you know that you are ready to write your book, that message that's been burning inside of you for a long time, then I want to talk to you. My team and I want to talk to you. Head on over to ShaynaHartman.com and click Work with Us. From there, you'll see an application to explore and see if writing your book is your next best step.